February 24, 2022, exactly 365 days ago, Russia attacked Ukraine. The overwhelming prediction was this, that the conflict will see a swift end and Kiev will fall within days. That didn't happen though. 1 year later, Ukraine is standing and Putin plans to double down. He's bringing reinforcements. He sought China's help and China seems ready to oblige. The West has repeatedly warned China against this, but they haven't really spelled out how China will intervene. How will it enter the conflict militarily? Tonight, we come with some answers. We've accessed specific details, like the arms China could provide, the name of the manufacturer, the mode of supplying these weapons to Russia. And like I've said before, this could change a lot. It could change the course of the war. So here's what we know about China's plans. It will share killer drones with Russia. How many? At least 100. Kamikaze drones to begin with. What are kamikaze drones? They're small unmanned aircraft. They're packed with explosives. They get their name from Japanese kamikaze pilots, the ones who carried out suicide attacks during the Second World War. The US Navy feared them the most because these pilots used to crash into enemy targets. Their aircraft used to be packed with explosives. Now these Chinese drones work the same way. The only difference is they can be unmanned. They don't need a pilot. They're small, they're cheap, they're very hard to detect. China could provide such drones to Russia. The transfer could happen as soon as April this year. Reports say discussions are underway. The Russian military is driving these talks. A Chinese drone manufacturer is at the center of this effort. The name of the company is Xi'an Bingo Intelligent Aviation Technology. It has agreed to mass-produce drones for Russia. They will make it. They will test it. The name of this drone is ZT-180. It can carry a heavy warhead, up to 50 kilograms to be exact. Chinese kamikaze drones fit right into Russia's war strategy. The Russian military has been using them in Ukraine. Moscow got these drones from Iran first. China could be the second supplier. And it has taken a while to decide. Reports say last year China made a plan. It involved the People's Liberation Army, or the PLA. They were supposed to deliver replacement parts for Russian fighter jets. And how would they do that? Falsify shipping documents, disguise the parts of the military aircraft, disguise them, present them as parts of civilian planes. This was the plan. And we're not sure if China implemented it, but now we know it is determined to help Russia. Reports say Xi'an Bingo, the company making these drones, will also deliver parts. They will also share know-how. The idea basically is to make Russia self-reliant. With the help of Chinese parts and know-how, the Russians should be able to make their own kamikaze drones. So the plan seems to be in place. The supply chain is ready. So is the transportation. What they're waiting for is the green light from Beijing. Will it come though? Will China give the go-ahead and arm Russia? For the moment, Beijing is distancing itself from the company.
I haven't heard of this. What I do know is that recently there has been a large volume of disinformation spread on this issue, and we should be vigilant about the intentions behind this. What I would also like to stress is that China has always adopted a prudent and responsible attitude in arms export and does not provide any arms sales to conflict regions or warring parties. Everything China has done can be summed up in one sentence, which is promoting peace and dialogue.
And the United States is maintaining pressure. Secretary of State Antony Blinken issued another warning. Listen to this.
President Biden was on a video conference with President Xi and said to him very directly, very clearly, that any Chinese military support for Russia in this conflict, or for that matter, the systematic evasion of sanctions, would be a serious problem for the relationship between the United States and China.
So that was Blinken's message to China. Even Europe is concerned. Josep Borrell is the EU's top diplomat. He met with his Chinese counterpart Wang Yi last week. Borrell says he asked Wang Yi about this, whether China will arm Russia. He asked him, and Wang Yi said no. But Borrell isn't taking his answer at face value.
When I asked him about the possible military support of China to Russia, he was very clear and assertive. I can only repeat what he told me. China is not providing arms to Russia. Certainly, we have to remain vigilant.
We have to be vigilant, he says. Borrell was at the United Nations yesterday. There was an important vote at the UN General Assembly, a vote that Russia lost. Basically, the UN wants Russia to withdraw from Ukraine. That was the vote. 141 countries voted in favor, 7 were against, 32 abstained. Russia called the vote, quote unquote, unbalanced and anti-Russian. And India was one of the countries that abstained, so did China. Remember, this whole exercise was symbolic. This vote, the United Nations vote, has no legal binding on Russia. Yes, it makes a statement, but it will not lead to a Russian withdrawal. In fact, the UN has never been able to stop or end any war. So it changes nothing on the ground, but Ukraine tried to make the most of it.
This vote defies the argument that Global South does not stand on Ukraine's side, because many countries representing Latin America, Africa, Asia voted in favor today.
Back in Kiev, Ukraine's President Volodymyr Zelenskyy is declaring a win too. On the anniversary of the war, the first anniversary, Zelenskyy released a video. The title of the video was this: "The Year of Invincibility." Ukraine's president claims they'll win the war this year.
Великі народи великої України.
We will defeat all threats. Shelling, bombs, missiles, kamikaze drones, blackouts, cold. We are stronger than all this. It was a year of endurance, a year of compassion, a year of bravery, a year of pain, a year of hope, a year of perseverance, a year of unity, a year of invincibility, a fierce year of invincibility. Its main conclusion is that we have survived. We had not been defeated, and we will do everything to win this war.
Це був рік стійкості.
Full marks for theatrics. But the plan itself sounds a bit far-fetched, especially when you consider the shortage of ammunition. Zelensky's message makes one thing clear, though. Ukraine is in no mood to negotiate. It wants to fight this out on the battlefield. And what's the mood on the ground? Well, it's somber. Ukrainians are still living in fear. They don't know where the next attack could come from. Today, ceremonies were held across the country as the attacks continued. Russia has launched a fresh wave of strikes. Russian troops are closing in on Bakhmut. It's an important city in eastern Ukraine. The Wagner group is said to have made advances here. It says it took control of a village.
Верховка полностью взята под наш контроль. Подразделение ЧВК «Вагнер».
The battle for the east is important. If Russia is successful, Putin will be emboldened to make more advances. And if Ukraine manages to hold on, it could weaken Russian forces on the ground. That's not happening yet. Russia remains on the offensive, backed by Chinese support. Beijing is taking on the West. It's accusing the West of pouring fuel into the fire.
乌克兰危机至今已有1年。
The international community should make joint efforts to facilitate peace talks. 1 year in the Ukraine crisis, brutal facts offer an ample proof that sending weapons will not bring peace. Adding fuel to the fire will only exacerbate tensions. Prolonging and expanding the conflict will only make ordinary people pay an even heftier price.
And leading the Western response is Germany. The German foreign minister said, "We did not want this war, in fact. We did not choose the war." This is what she said. And that the German government would much rather focus every bit of our energy and money in fixing our schools, in fighting the climate crisis and strengthening social justice. She ended her speech with this.
But the truth is, if Russia stops fighting, this war ends. If Ukraine stops fighting, Ukraine ends. And the human suffering would continue every single day.
Meanwhile, China has proposed a peace plan, a 12-point peace plan. It calls for a ceasefire, security guarantees for Russia, no sanctions on Moscow, humanitarian corridors, and the resumption of dialogue between Moscow and Kiev. It looks fine on paper, except that Ukraine was not consulted and the West will not be on board. And now it's time for Vantage shots, images that tell the story. When the Russia-Ukraine war started, no one thought it would go on for a year. Thousands of civilians and soldiers have been killed, millions displaced, the world stands divided. Many conferences, meetings, dialogues, and pledges later, there is no end in sight. On the first anniversary of this war, tributes have been pouring in from across the world. At the same time, Russia celebrated Defender of the Fatherland Day. We're leaving you with these images. Thanks for watching. Have a good weekend. We'll see you on Monday.
Ukraine, but to the entire world. And together, I have no doubt we'll keep the flame of liberty burning.
Very powerful poem about the Ukraine, but I think you will be back.
So, where are you investing?
Oh, China, it's just growing.
It's always been the manufacturing hub. Besides, India's struggling post-COVID.
Of course.
Sir, actually India's management of COVID has been much better. China's situation till date is unclear. After zero COVID lockdowns, China is gradually losing its supremacy as manufacturing leader. The country's share of global exports of footwear, furniture, or clothing accessories has fallen since 2016. Meanwhile, India has bounced back. So by the looks of it,
India could become the global manufacturing hub by 2030. Presenting Vantage with me, Palki Sharma, a first-of-its-kind global show with an Indian perspective.
An Indian becoming a UK PM.
Well, it's not like that we are going to get the Kohinoor back. But at least India is on its way to the top, huh?
But Gautam sir, there's actually not much to celebrate.
Why not? An Indian is ruling the UK.
Indian leaders in third countries often tend to overcompensate for their minority handicap.
Key.
For example, Sunak's Home Secretary of Indian origin, Suella Braverman, disapproved of India-UK free trade because it would encourage people immigrating to the UK, and the majority of whom were Indians. Structurally, India and UK have passed baggage, but still hasn't been resolved. And that is why,
Ladies and gentlemen, India needs to significantly temper its expectations from Rishi Sunak. Presenting Vantage with me, Palki Sharma, a first-of-its-kind global show with an Indian perspective.